welcome back to Modern Day Meta. Modern Day Meta is all about bridging the everyday and the sacred. I'm Meta, and thank you for joining me for a special edition video, which I hope will be an informative look at the current planetary influences with a focus on the outer planets, including a couple of sneak peeks at Saturn and Jupiter, who are both moving into the sign of Aquarius later this year. I also provide a look at the inner planets and what they are doing twice a month. To check that out, please tune in to one of the current wellness videos. If you don't want to miss the wellness videos or ones I do for each Sabbath on the Wheel of the Year, or the monthly birthday reading, or the moon phase readings I give for the collective, then you'll want to be sure and subscribe to the channel on YouTube, as well as follow me on Instagram and Facebook. So let's take a look at what's happening in today's sky as of the recording of this video, which is around March 1st, 2020, and what our outer planetary influences are doing. So, a general summary, just to sort of kick us off, is really about Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, who are hanging out in Capricorn throughout most of 2020. Also happening this year, as I just mentioned, Saturn will be changing signs and moving into Aquarius and then retrograding back to Capricorn. And really, any time a planet changes sign from one sign to the next, it is a big energetic shift for the energy and the way that that planet expresses through the lens of whatever sign it might be in. And the way those two things cooperate or challenge one another can really change, and how we will change that energy and how we might expect to deal with it. So Saturn is changing signs and moving into the sign of Aquarius, so this will be a significant shift away from a lot of this Capricorn energy we will have experienced and anchored in throughout 2020. And in addition to that, generally speaking, at the very end of this year, 2020, Jupiter and Saturn will be having a conjunction together, both in their new and fresh sign of Aquarius and right on the winter solstice. So I think that as we move through 2020, we will begin to hear more talk about this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. Some say that it may have been the Star of Bethlehem, that the planets that were conjuncting at that particular time, forming the Star of Bethlehem, they believe may have been Jupiter and Saturn together. So we'll be hearing more, I think, throughout the collective community here around this interesting new reoccurrence, actually. Saturn, it won't be the first time, obviously, Saturn and Jupiter have joined together, but certainly we'll look at how often they come together, and then how often they come together in the sign of Aquarius. And that will be probably some interesting information. But later on, we'll be taking a look at basically what it might look and feel like for those energetic shifts for both Jupiter and Saturn to be heading into Aquarius. All right, so most of 2019, if you guys recall, was all about this big play up to the Saturn conjunct Pluto, which kicked off our 2020 year on January 12th. And since then, it's pretty much been a party in Capricorn, because earlier, at the end of December in 2019, Jupiter had arrived, but earlier this month, in February of 2020, Mars also joined in. And so we had quite a group up there, Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, Mars. And specifically with Mars arrival, and with the way that it transits in its energy, it will be going over these sensitive points up in Capricorn that Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter have all been inhabiting for a certain amount of time. And by the way, the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, this energy will be in play through February of next year. So that's what I meant by party over, at a time. A little hat tip to Prince there, of course. So that's sort of like the general, right? Everybody was really focused on this big Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Well, what was it about? I mean, some people, I've been referring to it as the fall of the patriarchy. And basically when the conjunction between Saturn and Pluto hit in mid-January, it can take on a rather destructive and explosive format when Pluto pushes our outdated rules to the brink. And we have seen and continue to see and expect massive changes in regards to our governments and the struggle for power. So, yeah, and that struggle, the patriarchy is not going to go down without a fight, obviously, if you're watching. So, yeah, this great Saturn-Pluto conjunction really, to me, is about overturning the places where government has been exploiting people and it's corrupted. And we will still be going through this energy. We have all of the rest of this year and into February of next year to complete this. But yeah, we can continue to see these massive changes in government with a focus on the struggle for power, and specifically even, false narratives and things that really are intended to scare us. So, but let's talk about Jupiter for just a minute, because Jupiter is direct at the moment in Capricorn at 19 degrees, again, as of March 1st, 2020. And just to give you guys some insight, Jupiter changes sign about once a year, which means it will spend a full year, a full 12 months in one sign. And it's a real boon. Jupiter is the benefic, not the malefic, the opposite of that. And just expands and blesses everyone, and whatever that sign is for that year. So it's important to kind of keep an eye on where Jupiter is and when it's going to hit your sign next. It does take 12 full years for it to make one revolution around our sun. So you'll get at least a few opportunities to line up with the blessings of Jupiter. It's currently in Capricorn, as I mentioned, blessing all of our Capricorn people. So on the 19th of December, again, I mentioned this at the top of the video, Jupiter will enter Aquarius and remain there until May 12th of 2021. And just a few days later, at the winter solstice, it joins Saturn in Aquarius and really heralding, it's still about a week out from 2021, but that energy is still going to be really strong and really present as we head into 2021. And again, you can bet on hearing more information from the astrological community as we approach the end of the year. More information specifically about this Jupiter conjunct Saturn in Aquarius, because it's bringing in a lot of really good energy. So Jupiter transiting Capricorn is about making our dreams a reality. This is a time to moderate and pace ourselves. Everything is coming together. And even if it's not as quick as we'd like, this is a time to plant your feet firmly and trust yourself and your intuition and creativity to lead you to where you want to go. We will find our joy and excitement not through quick wins or fluffy vision or hype, but through the efforts of our labors. So what's going to happen when Jupiter heads into Aquarius? What kind of shift can we expect? Well, I'm going to show you a small wall of text, and I apologize for that, but I am going to read it to you, and you can follow along with me. While Jupiter is in Aquarius, the cosmos is asking you to examine the beliefs that you hold as parameters for perception. The onus of belief identification is completely on us. After all, we are the ones who live inside our heads or minds. With Jupiter in Aquarius, we are being asked to renegotiate our relationship to manifestation itself, our ability to magnetize or attract that which we desire. Beliefs can be subtle. Sometimes belief is an ungrounded energy, a reaching for security or certainty. No matter the way belief shows up for us, we are in a space of review, curiosity, and understanding during this transit. Not only are we ready to think differently, but we are also taking the actionable steps to re-engineer our lives along these lines, from the immediate and the practical to the subtle and the energetic. This is a time for reinvention, a time to think differently, to turn your industry on its head and do it differently. It's really a time to reinvent the wheel. I mean, why do we need wheels when we can fly? So that's a sneak peek of the energies we can expect with Jupiter mixing with Aquarius. Next up, Saturn, or the planet of adulting, as astrologer Kathy Biehl likes to put it, which I so love. So Saturn currently is direct in Capricorn at 28 degrees. A little bit about Saturn is it changes sign every 2.5 years. So it'll visit and hang out in one particular sign for about 2.5 years before it moves on to the next sign. And this means it takes 29 to 30. It sort of ranges in there, approximately 30 years to make one complete revolution around our sun. So you will have a Saturn return, it's called, beginning at around age 29, sometimes 28.5. But right around age 29, finishing up at about 31. And you'll have another Saturn return right around 59 as you're approaching 60. So, and if you're lucky and make it to your centennial year, you would have a third Saturn return. However, most don't make it that far. So on March 21st, which is about 3 weeks from now at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Saturn will be moving into Aquarius. And this is actually a short stay. He's sort of tipping his toe in the water and giving us a little taste, I think, of what it's potentially going to be like before he moves more fully into Aquarius at the end of the year with Jupiter. So, but let's take a look. He's on the 21st moves to Saturn, and then on May 10th begins that backward dance. And this is what's sort of going to slow the roll of Saturn making it into Aquarius, kind of under his normal pace or routine with the retrograde. And what it does is it makes Saturn really only hanging out in the Capricorn energy and the Aquarius energy at the very end of the year, all year long. It's really sort of the universe holding us in that Saturn and Capricorn energy for probably very good reasons. There's a lot to dismantle with what's broken in government, etc., which is one of the areas that Capricorn rules, which we'll see in just a minute. So on the 10th of May, Saturn retrogrades right as it's tipped its toe to 1 degree Aquarius. So we're going to get this teeny tiny taste, and then it's going to begin its backwards dance and move all the way back to 25 Capricorn, which will be then July 1st, and then it'll re-enter Capricorn and continue moving backwards through Capricorn until September 28th, when it stations direct, which means slows its backward roll and finds its, comes to that neutral position and gets ready to move into its forward and full power phase, forward motion, which will be December 17th, 2020. And right around that time, Jupiter will be catching up. And together they will sort of cross into the winter solstice together, conjunct. So again, stay tuned for, I think, a lot more information about this as we head through 2020. So, while Saturn is in Capricorn, it is its natural home there. If you know anything about astrology, all of the signs have a planetary ruler, and in Capricorn's case, it's Saturn. So this is why Saturn would be naturally at home in Capricorn. And with this transit, we'll get out of it what we put in. This is a time of building structures and foundations and slow but persistent progress. Saturn also rules society and all the rules that govern society, such as politics, religions, corporations, financial structures, and economies. This is a period where new systems, foundations, and organizations will be built, and where old and outdated systems will collapse. So again, those old broken systems are coming down. So Saturn's impact, this is real interesting here, if you can digest this, because Saturn stands at a real interesting place in the universe. It is the first, well, it's not the first. Jupiter is the first one after what's called the inner planets, after Mars. And once we cross that line, we start to get and go to Jupiter and Saturn and beyond. We start to get to more social influences on that person. And it does, these planets also define certain aspects of the personality, but it's not like directed so much at the 3D personality. It is the more metaphysical elements of the 3D personality are represented through those outer planets. So Saturn kind of stands at an interesting place. Saturn's impact is the culmination of all our work, experiences, lessons, and insights of the inner planets. And it needs to create structure and form from it. Saturn is the only planet that can create things. The other inner planets are the expression and active influences to what we create through the rules and systems followed by Saturn. Through this transit, we will embark on an adventure within ourselves and in the external world, creating long-term sustainability and progress. This is a time to go for your big dreams and take action towards them daily. So, again, talked about that sneak peek. What's going to happen, though, when Saturn does hit Aquarius, even for just that toe in, but later at the end of the year, the full-fledged dive in with Jupiter? Let's take a look. Again, read along with me, and we'll find out what we have in store when the energy that Saturn, which is really sort of more about structure and form, meets the new frontier seeking, not unconventional Aquarius, energy of Aquarius. The two seem rather very different from one another. It'll be interesting to see how they mix. So during this time, we will see a surge in the sales and marketing of information, a disassembly of old traditional ways of education, marketing and media, and an increase in innovation, discovery, and new technology. We will also see an increased interest in astrology, psychology, and other consciousness expanding tools, techniques, practices, and systems. This will be a period of great change. With this transit, there will be a shift from personal interests and wants to what is best for the planet, humanity, and the collective. We will see an even greater impact from our personal choices on the whole of the planet and all species. This will highlight the need for greater personal responsibility and initiating further change in regards to the environment, waste, public health, social supports, technology, and the rules governing it, and the impact of the economy on global, personal, and environmental health. Well, it sounds really wonderful to me that both of these planets, Jupiter and Saturn, are heading into these new forward-thinking, brotherly, loving, humanitarian energies of Aquarius. All right, so up next is Uranus, and we really haven't heard a lot about Uranus or Neptune. A lot of focus has been placed on this great big meeting of Pluto and Saturn, January 12th, earlier this year. But if you are tuning in to the astrological community, you might have heard about Uranus, who did recently change signs, which was very powerful for the Earth sign of Taurus, which is where it is now, direct at about 3 degrees. And Uranus changes signs every 7 years. So it's going to hang out here in Taurus for 7 years and takes 84 years for a full revolution around the sun. So you'll have only one Uranus return in your human lifetime if you're lucky and make it to 84. So later this year, in the middle of summer, on 15th of August, Uranus will retrograde from 10 degrees back to 6 degrees. You'll want to look at areas of focus or events that occurred between the 10th of May and the 15th of August in 2020. So it will be sort of a mirror or reflection. Also, I'm listing the degrees because that's really one of the more important things to understand about these outer planets as they make their trek around the sun every year. And they do that through and the way we measure and mark that is through the signs and by degree, 30 degrees for each sign. And the reason why we look at the degrees is so that we can map where transiting Uranus might be hitting by exact degree one of your planets that was deposited in the sky on the day you were born. And this will have a significant impact on you. Usually, this is where we get the term Saturn return and other terms like that. We're talking about the transiting Saturn coming to its natal position on the day you were born. It's making its return home, if you will, Saturn return. So, an example here would be, I'll use myself. My sun is at 4 degrees of Taurus. So Uranus is bearing down. Uranus, the great innovator and great awakener, is bearing down on my sun this spring and bringing revolution to me, the way that I transmit my light to the rest of the universe. It's a very powerful transit. But Uranus will be retrograding, and then in January of early next year, it stations direct and begins forward motion again. And again, because of its long stay here, Uranus will be here through this sign, helping all Tauruses. Right now, it's the early Taurus degrees that are getting a good dose of it this spring, but Uranus will be here in Taurus through 2026. So, what does Uranus in Taurus feel like? Uranus rules rebellion, war, change, revolution, freedom, confronting fear, and speaking our truth. It is the great awakener. And Taurus loves food and home and friends and keeping things kosher. And when it's met with the change agent Uranus, this area of our life is bound to see the most dramatic upgrades, which may even feel a bit like a mini earthquake. That would be me and my sun. So it can hit any planet. You could have Mercury at 3 degrees Taurus or early Taurus or Venus. This is why it's important to know where your planets are for the day of your birth, as well as knowing your rising sign and the signs on your house cusps, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Anyways, Taurus loves comfort. So how do these two reconcile? It's gonna be interesting. Uranus will remain in Taurus for the next 6 years. The last time that Uranus was in Taurus was post-World War II, where new systems were created to ensure the welfare and balance for all, like social welfare and standard work weeks, necessary and important to financial stability for both the family, community, and the country's welfare. As Uranus embarks upon its 5-year journey through Taurus, what we can be sure of is that by 2025, the way you have looked at, used, and generated money, financial security, government, law, and growth will not look at all the same. Go Uranus. Next up is Neptune. Again, we didn't hear too much about Neptune. Neptune is direct In its home sign of Pisces at 18 degrees, Neptune changes sign every 14 years and takes 164 years to go around our sun. Later this spring, on the 22nd of June, Neptune will be retrograding in Pisces at 20 degrees back to 18 degrees. You'll want to look at and understand those points in your own chart to understand how that will affect you. And then on the 28th of November, later in the year, it stations direct. Neptune will remain in Pisces through 2027. And Neptune rules both sleeping and waking dreams, imagination, fantasies, optimism, and idealism in life and romance. This is a time to cultivate your intuition, to listen to your dreams, and to work with yourself to dive deeper into understanding the mechanism and patterns you are repeating. Pisces is also the natural ruler of the 12th house, which is where we hide things from ourselves and where our subconscious and trauma reside. The way to heal the planet is by more of us working with this unknown and often scary part of ourselves and bringing awareness and healing to it. This will create a ripple effect that has the power to change and heal the world to a magnitude that we cannot yet comprehend. If you're feeling drawn to lean into your own intuition, to use it in your work, to use it with clients, this is your nudge. The veil between you and Source, your intuition, has never been thinner than it is right now. Next up, Pluto, the planet of death and renewal. Pluto is direct in Capricorn at 24 degrees. Pluto changes sign every 10 to 20 years and takes 248 years to complete a revolution around our sun. Pluto will remain in Capricorn until 2024. And over the next 4 years, we will see significant changes and transformations in all the areas that Capricorn rules, such as government, rules, foundations, regulations, currencies, economies, resources, money, and legacies. This will not be a simple rebuilding or redesigning. The change will come through power struggles, the use of fear for control, uncovering the deep subconscious, and a willingness to surrender or risk great loss for a sense of purpose and meaning. We may find great conspiracies, abuses of power, and a need to stand up for rights, as rules and laws can be used as coercive measures by those wishing to gain power and control. This is a time where we are reminded of what's important to us, and that we cannot remain complacent for the things that are of real value. Use the next 4 years to stand strong for what's important to you and to deeply inquire what you are willing to give up, sacrifice, or surrender to live a life of real meaning and significance. That's pretty much a wrap of the current outer planetary influences for most of 2020. There may be some additional videos, as I mentioned, as planets change sign, because that makes sense. But this might be a good reference video for you throughout the year, which I hope it will be. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about ways that you can apply the information that I just shared, and to see and understand what area of your personal life might be influenced by the planets that I just discussed, you will need to know your own time of birth and have your birth chart available so that you can locate your own houses on your chart. And I'll give you an example of how it will help you. I just shared that Uranus is currently in Taurus. And on my birth chart, Taurus is in the second house, or rules the second house. So the area currently influenced by Uranian energy is the house of earned income, self-worth, and values. So that's how one way I would look at and apply the information that I just shared. If you're looking for your birth chart, you've never had it done, you can get it for free online at cafeastrology.com or astro.com. You do need some information, including your date of birth, your time of birth, and be positive about that. Check your birth certificate. You'll also need your city of birth. And with that information, these websites will be able to calculate your birth chart for you. You can print it out and then look for yourself to see what sign is on the cusp of each house in your chart. And then it will help you to better apply the information I just shared with you. If you've hung out all the way to the end of the video, thank you. I appreciate that. I also appreciate your likes and subscribes. Be sure to leave me a comment and tell me what portions of the video resonated with you or supported you. And also be sure and check out the latest current planetary influences and wellness video for your sign's element. You can follow my moon phase updates on Instagram as well. Until next time, namaste.